Can a non-technical person understand AWS? Let's answer this honestly, without the hype, without the fear, and without pretending. The short answer? Yes. Absolutely yes. A non-technical person can understand AWS. The longer answer is that most people are confused about AWS because it's explained badly, not because they aren't smart enough. This video is for anyone outside of tech, for people who are curious but maybe a little intimidated, for those of you who hear the term AWS everywhere but don't actually know what it does, and for anyone who thinks you must know how to code or be some kind of genius to get it. If that sounds like you, then stay with me. First, let's talk about what AWS is not. AWS is not coding. AWS is not hacking. And it's not just for software engineers. Sure, those things exist on the AWS platform, but they are not the foundation. Believing that AWS equals coding is the single biggest misunderstanding that holds people back. So, what is AWS in simple, human terms? It's rented infrastructure. That's it. Instead of companies buying their own physical computers, their own physical storage, their own physical servers and data centers, they just rent all of that from Amazon. Think about it like this. You rent a house instead of building one from scratch. You buy a data plan for your phone instead of trying to build a telecom company. You use electricity from the grid instead of owning your own power station. AWS is the exact same idea, just for computing power. So why does AWS look so complicated to non-technical people? It's because AWS was not designed for beginners. It was designed for businesses. So when a non-technical person opens the AWS website for the first time, it feels like walking into a spaceship's control room. You see 1,000 buttons you don't recognize and hear words nobody ever explains. That confusion is totally normal. It doesn't mean AWS is beyond your reach. It just means the interface assumes you have some prior knowledge. The biggest mistake people make is they try to learn AWS from the inside out. They open the dashboard first. They start clicking on different services. They try to memorize all the strange names. That's completely backwards. You don't learn about a city by starting inside the airport control tower. You start by understanding why the city exists, what people do there, and who uses what. AWS should be learned the exact same way. What does a non-technical person actually need to understand about AWS? You don't need to know how to configure a server. You just need to understand what problems AWS solves, why companies use it, and how money flows through it. For example, Netflix uses AWS to stream movies to your screen. Banks use AWS to securely store and process massive amounts of financial data. And startups use AWS to launch their business without buying thousands of dollars worth of expensive servers. Just understanding that already puts you way ahead of most people. Let's break down the main parts of AWS into everyday concepts. Storage? That's like renting a giant, secure warehouse for your digital files. Compute? That's like renting a super powerful computer that runs all day and all night without ever sleeping. A database? Think of it like a perfectly organized digital filing cabinet that you can search instantly. Security? That's the digital equivalent of locks, security guards, and access cards. And networking? That's like the system of roads and highways that allows all your data to move from one place to another safely and quickly. See? None of these ideas are technical. Only the names sound technical. So why do people think AWS is only for tech people? It's because most creators teach the tools, not the concepts. They start by saying, create an EC2 instance, attach an EM role, and configure a VPC, without ever explaining why any of that matters. That's like trying to teach someone how to drive by starting with the engine parts. Of course people feel lost. So, can a non-technical person actually work in a role related to AWS? Yes. There are many jobs that focus on understanding systems, explaining them to others, managing costs, coordinating teams, and making strategic decisions. You don't need to type a single line of code to do that. You need clarity, not complexity. The real skill that AWS requires isn't coding or memorization. It's logical thinking. It's understanding trade-offs. It's knowing why something exists. Those are human skills, not technical ones. And this matters because the cloud is no longer optional. Businesses are there. Governments are there. The best jobs are being built around it. You don't need to become a technical expert to understand the world you live in. Here's the final truth. If you can understand the difference between renting and owning, if you get the idea of pay as you go, And if you know why a business needs to scale up when demand increases, then you can understand AWS. Don't let confusing dashboards or weird jargon make you feel excluded. AWS is complex on the surface, but it's simple at its core. And understanding that core is more than enough. Thanks for watching. If this helped clear things up, consider subscribing for more simple explanations of complex topics.